I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and it is finally almost spring. Yesterday, which was March 9th, we had a day in Massachusetts where I think it was 70 degrees, which was wild with snow still all over the ground. But it has me so excited for the spring that I know is still a long way away. And so I thought today we'd dye up some yarn, some happy spring colors, and just have a lot of fun. And before we go look at our color palette, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to today's lab partner, Pat Hooked. Pat, thank you so much for being my lab partner for today's episode of Dyepot Weekly. On my Dharma acid dyes, I have these swatches that I cut out of a poster to put on the containers. They actually now sell stickers, but back in the day, this is just packing tape with the poster cut up. And I love this because sometimes as I'm thinking about what I want to use for a project, I see these and ideas form in my brain of a colorway I want to create. Now, the main colors I would like to use today are Dharma acid dyes in Bright Aqua, Peach Blush, and Spearmint Breeze. And now we may also add, depending on what I'm feeling, a little bit Caribbean Blue, maybe some Pink Orchid as like accents, or maybe speckles. I haven't quite decided, but these three colors are definitely going to be the main. And I'm just excited to see where we go. The yarn we're going to be dyeing today is Knit Picks Swish DK. This yarn is 100% superwash merino wool. If you want to learn more about it, I will have Knit Picks affiliate links down in the video description, and I may earn a commission if you make a purchase after clicking on one of my links. I pre-soaked this yarn in plain tap water with no acid for a couple of hours. I set this up this morning, and I'm excited to finally dye it. This is my 4-inch deep full-size catering steam pan, and in it I have 16 cups of water. Let's go ahead and add 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of white vinegar to it. With acid dyes, you do need acidic conditions for the pigments to bind to the yarn. Now, my tap water is slightly acidic, so I do see some amount of colors binding to the yarn even with no acid and no heat, especially if it's a superwash yarn. On non-superwash yarn, colors tend to take even more time. But let's add our yarn in. I'm planning on going for sort of a random color placement, but I do want to keep in mind that, that the peach blush and the spearmint are gonna feel a little bit different. So maybe I want the aqua to be the main color and the other two to be secondary. I'm not sure, but what I'm going to do now is start heating things up. With this proportion of water to yarn, we're going for more splotches of color that I'm going to work through versus speckles. If I really wanted good speckles without spread, I would use a lot less water here. But let's go ahead and heat this up, and then we can start bringing over dyes. We're still heating up, but while I'm going to apply the dry dye powder onto the yarn, I will be wearing my Deluxe Rubber respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves. And there will be extra dye on my gloved fingertips. And I'm going to put some on this yarn mop that already has some Bright Aqua on it. It has a little bit of Caribbean Blue on it as well. This is a skein of Knit Picks Stroll fingering weight yarn that's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, but there's no acid in it yet. And so since I'm using similar colors and this didn't get used as much for another project, I'm bringing it over here. Okay, I'm going to start with our mint color. And I'm going to bring it sort of like randomly splotched, but there is some like heaviness and intent, randomness, a little bit lighter there. Now our mint and aqua are similar in a lot of ways, but are also different in others. It will be okay if we end up with some speckles, but I kind of wanted to see how much this might spread. And
fair amount. We have a lot of water in here. Before I went and got our peach. Now, peach blush, if I remember correctly, is a color that can strike pretty quickly. And of course, I'm going a little bit all over. I know I had said these colors would be accents, but I kind of need to see what they're going to do. Decide how I want to proceed. Yes. See, this is a color that is going to be a lot quieter overall compared to the green. It's one that, like, whenever I've used, I've always felt like, oh, I need to use a little bit more. It does not spread nearly as much, which is fine. We can intensify it more if we desire later on. But now, I'm going to bring over our more aqua color. And I could leave this one as more speckles, but I do think I want to try to work it through some. But depending on how things go, we may not end up gravitating towards any other colors. This is really pretty. And it's feeling very, very spring-like, which was my goal. Maybe a mistake to not have any acid in the yarn mop, but it'll be all right. Now I'm going to come through and work this color through, knowing that if it goes on top of the peach, that might give us some like purpley tones, but I don't think it'll be ugly. And I'm okay if we do have some specks around. I think that this is really pretty. I've gone back and forth on this a little bit, especially since we have so much. But I am bringing over some little speckles of pink orchid, letting mostly around the peach, but just tiny amounts of the pigment fall. Now, some of the areas on our yarn have some water like at that surface, and so we may see a little bit of pink spread in some areas. You know, we might bring some little hints around to some other areas, but just a tiny little hint. And the key with this is I'm picking up only the smallest amount of powder and barely opening my fingers to try to let tiny amounts of it fall onto the yarn. But this is also a color that I know strikes really, really fast. And so, yes, we may get some spread, but I think it'll mostly stay where I've put it. So, I'm feeling a little overexposed, which maybe is the camera LCD screen versus the footage, but anyway, I am going to let this sit for, goodness, how long? Let's go ahead and wait 10 minutes.
I think some of the green has spread. I'm not going to worry about that. What we're going to do now is flip the yarn over, so that way we can dye the other side. And we're going to try to, that's hot, we're going to try to place colors in similar areas. So for example, where I see the most of our peach, that's where we're going to put peach. Where I see the most of like our green, that's where the green's going to go, etc. But I'm going to be focusing on the most pastel areas, but you can see we got pretty good coverage and spread, which means that the more I add color here, the more spread and blend we could end up with. With my respirator mask, safety glasses, and gloves on, I brought over our dyes to continue applying color to the second side. Once again, starting with our peach blush and spearmint, and then bringing over the aqua and a little bit of pink orchid speckling. The peach isn't as bright as it was originally, but I'm kind of leaning into that a little bit. And I think that we're getting something that is feeling, I mean, I always say this, but it's feeling very floral to me. And I'm liking where that's headed. Once I was done adding our dyes, I waited 10 minutes before checking in on the colors. Ooh-wee! This is colorful. Oh, I love the little pops of pink, which I don't know how well you can see right now, but you'll see them very well later. Let's see how we are feeling. I mean, we've got really good coverage. That I know we've got like some pastel spots. So I think what I might do, I'm debating between leaving it and actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Okay, we're gonna go pop on my mask. And then we're gonna add just a little bit more of the pink orchid in some of the areas that are a little bit more pastel. Just to bring a little bit more depth in to it. And I think with this, I'm going to call this one because I really like what we have and don't want to overdo it. With the volume of water that we have in here, if I were to continue layering color, it would blend things together so much more. And so, Pat, I hope you're really enjoying where this is headed. But for now, I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes, and we'll come back once that timer has gone off. I usually like to wait 30 minutes from the last time I added dye. Now that we're finishing up our main colorway here, this is what we have going on with our yarn mop at the moment, and she is glorious with all these colors, but there's no acid on here yet. So what I'm gonna do is bring over some water. That is not going as smoothly as I thought. All right, I'm grabbing a turkey baster of some hot water that was 32 cups of water with, goodness, like 300 milliliters of white vinegar, 400 milliliters. And yes, adding liquid on is going to spread the colors out a bit, but that is adding some acid in here. And now I'm going to go ahead and steam set this for 30 minutes. But if future Rebecca is wondering why the colors spread onto the white, it's because I added water with acid onto it, which did spread those colors out a little bit. And I'm sure editing Rebecca will forget that I did that. It has been 30 minutes. So I am now going to turn off the heat and we're going to start removing the yarn. Oh, she's pretty. Now I'm going to want to wait until the yarn has cooled off completely before we wash it. And that is partially because I believe that spearmint probably it has a lot of similarities to emerald green, and we've seen that it spreads more than a bunch of these other colors. But our dye bath is looking clear, which is a good sign. It's still good practice to let the yarn cool off completely before we wash it. And the same is going to go for the yarn mop. I'm going to wash that off camera. Let's go ahead and wash our yarn mop together with our yarn. And for all I talked about letting things cool completely, maybe there was a little bit of warmth left in here. But I'm not seeing any color, which is good. Now, whenever you are dyeing yarn with dry dye powders, I very much like to make sure to submerge it really well during the washing process. This is because even though we did the dyeing in an immersion style, sometimes the dye can clump on the yarn and then might need some rinsing to remove it after the fact. I also like to make sure that the zip ties used in the dyeing process get really well submerged as well. This is a little more important if I'm doing like countertop speckles on damp yarn versus what we did here today, but it is something I like to do. Ooh, I like those aqua speckles that we have. But I'm not seeing any color come out in the yarn, which is good. And just because this yarn is a little bit different, here's a look at our main colorway, and then this guy is just our bonus. Now, rinsing the yarn also does, I guess, rinse out some of the acid as well and neutralize it a little bit, but that's not really a concern as much as I know some people may not like the smell of vinegar, and so I tend to find that my finished yarn does not smell like vinegar. So I think rinsing does help remove all that acetic acid. But anyway, I'm gonna pop this in my spin dryer and then hang it up to dry. This colorway is amazing. Sometimes when I dye yarn, I love how it looks when it's wet. And then once it's dry, I think, ooh, I should have added more color. I liked it more when it was wet. But I think I like it even more once it's dry because the peach doesn't feel as muted. It feels a little bit brighter. And that has me so excited. Like, yes, there's areas that maybe are slightly muddy, but it is so floral. And I love some of those chunky aqua and green speckles that we have. I mean, there also are some speckles by the peach, and then of course we have our pink speckles in various areas, but it just makes everything so fun and adds more dimension. Now, part of me wishes that I had let that peach be more of a star. It's a color that I always need to use more of than I think to have it really stand out. But at the same time, it is so good as an accent and as a pop of color in here that I really have no regrets. And I know I'm going to pull this palette more in the future. I've been thinking of our main colorway as rather floral, and on this yarn mop, it feels more almost like tropical. I feel more aquarium here and like hedge flowers over here. But you let me know what you think and what they remind you of down in the video description. And in the meantime, I'm gonna go twist everything up. Pat Hooked, thank you so much for being my lab partner for today's episode of Dyepot Weekly. I really hope that you're gonna love your yarn and that you enjoyed watching me create it. If you at home want to learn more about how you can become a lab partner like Pat, go and check out the listings in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. Pat, thank you again for being my lab partner. Now, there are many other ways you can help support the content here. The ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop is filled with hand-dyed yarn that is ready to ship, that has been featured in my videos, and so you can go back and rewatch exactly how I created the yarn as you work with it. I also have a Patreon, and you can join here on YouTube to become a channel member. But the biggest thing that you can do to support the content here is by watching the videos, engaging with them. Give it a thumbs up if you really liked it. Leave a comment down below. This tells YouTube to share the videos with more people, and that helps the channel grow and allows me to continue to play with color and yarn, which I absolutely adore doing. And sometimes I do a video like this, and then I feel like I'm bit by a little bug because I want to play with this colorway more, play with this color combination more, and it's been a while since I've done a lot of like immersion techniques like this, and so I'm excited to explore all of this more. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching.